Every book of the Bible has been calibrated. All of the great songs have been calibrated. The calibration goes like this. Over here to my left is a calibration of 0. And as far as I can go on this stage, let's say up to the speaker, represents 1,000. The energy level of 1,000 to here. All right? Now, anything that goes up to number 200 on this scale that I'm just arbitrarily giving to you, let's say 200 is right here, represents something called force. And every thought and every emotion that you have that calibrates between 0 and 200 is a thought or an emotion that weakens you in one way or another and lowers the energy field. And those calibrations, those thoughts, I'll give you the number 20 is the lowest, and the thought is shame. And this, by the way, is a 29-year study that was conducted over almost his entire professional lifetime. This is a medical doctor and a PhD researcher as well. At 30, we're moving up now. 30 is guilt, 50 is apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, until we reach approximately 200. Now, every energy that is below 200 is an energy that when you have that thought, the thoughts of humiliation, of blame, of despair, of anxiety, of hatred, of scorn, any of these kinds of thoughts, these thoughts are in what he calls force. And whenever you use force as a way of communicating, a way of talking, a way of being, you create, the problem is that we create a counterforce. And that people who calibrate below 200 in their lives, and anyone can be calibrated at any time. Even photographs can be calibrated. The photograph on the cover of A Spiritual Solution to Every Problem calibrates around 580. And it was a picture that was taken in Assisi after just an astonishing miracle had happened in my life. You have to, it's almost like I said yesterday, you have to willingly suspend your disbelief. You have to do a somersault into the inconceivable and allow yourself to open up to the possibility that every thought that you have and every emotion that you have and every internal experience that you have has an impact not only on you, but as I'll demonstrate to you in a few moments, on everyone that you encounter in your life and everything that you encounter in your life and whatever energy field that you radiate to. So we're talking 0 to 200, but this scale isn't a scale that is consistent all the way through. When you get to a number of 600, which represents extremely high energy, you were talking about maybe a few thousand people on the entire planet, Earth, today, out of the 6 billion or so of us who reach this level of consciousness of 600. When we're talking about moving into 700 and 800, we're talking about the greatest spiritual masters who've ever walked among us. People who live at the level of the ineffable, who are unconditional love, and have what Patanjali says, he said, when you become steadfast in your abstention of thoughts of harm directed toward others. Listen to that again. When you become steadfast in your thoughts of harm directed toward others, all living creatures will cease to feel enmity in your presence. If you're steadfast in abstaining from a thought of harm and never ever have a thought of harm or judgment directed toward others, because you have to know that when you judge another, you do not define them. You define yourself as someone who needs to judge. Calling someone else stupid or foolish or evil or whatever does not make them that. That just says something about you who needs to put those kind of labels on other people. So that if you can become steadfast and become an individual who never, but never has a thought of harm directed toward others or judgment, which is almost impossible for all of us who live at these ego levels that we've been conditioned to live at. But if you can conceive of yourself as being someone like that, all living creatures will cease to feel enmity in your presence. St. Francis of Assisi is someone who calibrated in the 900s. Maybe 7 or 8 people in the history of the world have calibrated above 950. Francesco's, in fact, the city just to the north of us, about 40 miles, was named after this little man, St. Francis, who left his worldly belongings behind and just took out to save the church. And he spent the last 2 years of his life up in a place that I visited with my wife a few years ago when I took a group of people to Assisi at Mount Suribasso. And the last 2 years of his life, he had to have his hands and his feet and his side bound so that he didn't bleed to death. Such was the energy level of this being. Hawkins suggests that any person who calibrates at 600 or higher, Mother Teresa calibrated at 600. When Mother Teresa walked into a radio studio where I was on the radio that morning, everyone in the room felt her presence. She weighed about 90 pounds. She's about 4'10". And she radiated out a different kind of an energy. And he suggests in Power versus Force, with his academic and research background, that anyone who can raise their calibration level to the level of 600 or higher, everyone in that energy field is automatically healed. Disease cannot survive when you are around that kind of energy. They said of Jesus, his presence in the village and nothing more would raise the consciousness of those around him. He suggests that only one person in the history of humanity has ever reached this level of 1,000, and that was Jesus of Nazareth.